अगर आपको कुछ भी चीज़ का पता करना है ना कि ये आपके लिए है कि नहीं, मेरे हिसाब से आपको सबसे पहले उसमें एक इंटर्नशिप कर लेनी चाहिए। आई थिंक तो आज के दिन आपके पास बस एक अच्छा आइडिया होना चाहिए और उसको इम्प्लीमेंट करने की कला आनी चाहिए। कैरिंग योर एंटायर करियर फॉर द नेक्स्ट 35-40 ईयर्स, तो आपको वो अगले 40 साल बैठ के खिलाएगा। So your question about how the industry is accepting is, I mean, industry is accepting this with open arms.
Hello, and welcome to the 5th episode of the Hustle to Heights podcast by We Are Placed. यहाँ हम डिस्कस करते हैं एक्सपीरियंस लोगों की करियर जर्नीज, उनके सक्सेस पाने का तरीका, उनके फेलियर्स और उन्होंने क्या चैलेंजेस फेस किए हैं। इससे पहले कि हम आज के गेस्ट को इंट्रोड्यूस करें, मैं आपको बताना चाहता हूँ कि आप हमारे YouTube चैनल और Instagram को फॉलो कर सकते हैं, क्योंकि यहाँ पे हम पूरे पॉडकास्ट के छोटे छोटे क्लिप्स डालते हैं जिससे आपको बाइट साइज लर्निंग मिल सके। आज के हमारे गेस्ट हैं रौनक जैन। रौनक एक डायनामिक लीडर हैं जिन्होंने मल्टीपल सेक्टर्स जैसे कि नेशन बिल्डिंग, करियर बिल्डिंग और ऑर्गेनाइजेशन बिल्डिंग में काम किया है। उनकी करियर जर्नी शुरू हुई 2010 में इकोनॉमिक्स की बैचलर डिग्री के साथ। उसके बाद उन्होंने TCOE और PRS लेजिस्लेटिव जैसे ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस में बहुत सारे इम्पैक्टफुल प्रोजेक्ट्स लीड किए हैं। रौनक एक सर्टिफाइड करियर कोच हैं और ये एपिसोड एक्शनेबल इनसाइट्स के साथ भरा हुआ है, चाहे आप किसी भी सेक्टर या डोमेन में अपना करियर बनाना चाहते हैं। तो आइए शुरू करते हैं ये एपिसोड और सुनते हैं रौनक से। वेलकम रौनक सर टू दी हसल टू हाइट्स पॉडकास्ट। यहाँ पे हम बेसिकली डिस्कस करेंगे आपकी करियर जर्नी एंड आपका पर्सपेक्टिव टुवर्ड्स करियर ग्रोथ और प्रोफेशनल ग्रोथ कैसे हो आज के यंग जॉब सीकर्स और यंग स्टूडेंट्स के लिए। तो हम स्टार्ट करते हैं सर इसको आपकी एक करियर जर्नी से। एक आप ओवरव्यू दे सकते हैं कि स्टार्टिंग से लेके अभी तक आपने क्या पाथ लिया है एंड व्हाट आर द डिफरेंट थिंग्स दैट यू हैव डन।
First of all, thank you, Vishal, for having me on your podcast. I'm very excited to be here, and congratulations to you and your team at Mithyaverse, the kind of work you guys are doing. I think I'll start by saying that my professional journey started way back in 2010 when I graduated in economics honors. And since then, it's been a roller coaster ride. Life has been rewarding, professional life has been kind. I've got the right set of mentors, right set of people coming in my life who've helped me through. And I've also had my share of failures, so to say. So it's been a great journey. I started off working with my father's firm actually. So my father, right out of graduation, my father used to run a trading company, a textile trading company. So I joined him as an assistant merchandiser, right, as a trainee to understand how textile works, how garment trading works. तो वहाँ पे मैंने कुछ 8-10 महीने बिताए and that was I think that was the first time I went into a professional setting and saw how things really work. बट वहाँ पे मुझे बहुत ज़्यादा इंटरेस्ट नहीं आया एंड देन आई वाज लुकिंग फॉर न्यूअर अपॉर्चुनिटीज. By the stroke of luck, I got an opportunity to work with a very interesting organization called TCOE, Telecom Centers of Excellence. And that institute or that organization was doing something very interesting. They were basically trying to get what you call today the academic industry integration, right? So ये सबसे पहले 2010 में उस कंपनी ने शुरू किया था. So it was basically working in the telecom sector. How do you make telecom sector in India, strong, right? And for that, how do you leverage the local expertise, right? जो इंडिया में एक्सपर्टीज हमारे आईआईटीज के पास है, जो एक्सपर्टीज हमारे एकेडमिक इंस्टीट्यूशंस के पास है, जो हमारे इंडस्ट्री के पास है. So that was my first job, and I'll, of course, we'll delve into it deeper later on. After that, I did my MBA, 2 years in Bombay. That was also an excellent, opportunity for me. और वहाँ पे मैंने बहुत कुछ सीखा. I was selected as a student, one of the student general secretaries in the college. So I got disproportionate exposure to, various aspects of how a business school is run. तो वहाँ पे it was very interesting. That was my first understanding of the real understanding of education sector. कि वो चलता कैसे, नॉट ओनली फ्रॉम परस्पेक्टिव ऑफ स्टूडेंट बट फ्रॉम परस्पेक्टिव of a person who was working very closely with the dean and the vice chancellor to make sure that the institution is working well, and is also getting prominence amongst various other business schools. उसके बाद वो मैंने 2 साल एमबीए किया, बहुत रिवॉर्डिंग जर्नी थी. देन उसके बाद आई गॉट एन अपॉर्चुनिटी टू वर्क with a public policy company in Delhi called PRS Legislative. तो जब मैं एमबीए कर रहा था, मैंने डिसाइड कर लिया था कि मेरा वो हैंगओवर जो था अपनी पहली ऑर्गेनाइजेशन का, टीसीओई का, वो उतरा नहीं था. एंड आई वांटेड टू गो बैक एंड वर्क इन द इम्पैक्ट स्पेस, राइट, in the public policy space. And this is where this is what has been my philosophy since, that whatever I've tried to do, I've always thought कि एक आदमी का करियर बहुत पर्पसफुल होना चाहिए, राइट, और बहुत इम्पैक्टफुल होना चाहिए, राइट, एंड ऑफ कोर्स फाइनेंशियली रिवॉर्डिंग होना चाहिए. So have always had I've always had that kind of a bent of mind, that I want to contribute to something which is making impact on people's life, whether society, whether economically or societal benefits, or as a part of nation building. So I've always been that kind of a person. So I got an opportunity कि मुझे वापस public sector में जाना है, and I got to work with an organization called PRS Legislative Research, which was into public policy essentially. And it is one of the most respected organization which provides research support to members of parliament in India. तो जितने भी हमारे पार्लियामेंट्री इंटरवेंशंस होते हैं, पार्लियामेंट में जितने भी मेजर मेंबर्स ऑफ पार्लियामेंट स्पीचेस देते हैं या बिल्स पे चर्चा करते हैं, या उस पे ऑल द काइंड ऑफ इंटरवेंशंस दे मेक, PR's legislative is basically one of the organizations which provides that back end support to them. तो वो मुझे करने का मौका मिला, एंड वंस दैट आई डिड दैट फॉर नंबर ऑफ इयर्स, ग्रेट लर्निंग्स, बहुत लोग, अच्छे लोगों को मिलने का मौका मिला, बहुत डिफरेंट टाइप ऑफ लोगों को मिलने का मौका मिला, एंड वी अंडरस्टूड हाउ नेशनल बिल्डिंग इज डन एट द हाईएस्ट लेवल इन द कंट्री. At that time, towards the end of my journey, I met someone who was a promoter, who was a young person again like me at that time, who was part of an education institution, right? He was from an education family, and he had a very exciting idea that he wanted to reshape the business education sector in India. So I met him, and then we eventually decided that we'll join hands and we'll start this college, and that's how Masters Union happened. Again, this very exciting venture, and this happened way back in 2020 when the COVID was going on. And the idea was कि हम अपने MBA education को कैसे disrupt कर सकते हैं for the betterment of the students, how we can make it hands on, and how we can make sure that हम थ्योरी से थोड़ा बाहर निकल के प्रैक्टिकल एस्पेक्ट्स ऑफ बिजनेस एजुकेशन पे फोकस करें. And that's how Masters Union happened. I helped build that up from 0 to 1 with the promoter. One of the very exciting journeys of my life, and very fulfilling, and fulfilling that. तो वो करने के बाद then I got an opportunity to work with various organizations as advisor, as a consultant, within the education sector, within the public policy sector. And if I were to define that, what has been my, how I would define my career, I would say that I have been very fortunate to work uh, in different sectors, right across startups, right across the government, right across public policy, right across businesses. So that way, my journey has been very unique, and I've been able to build a perspective about how these different walks of life, different walks of professional life actually work, and how are they different from each other. तो ये मेरी in short journey रही है, and now I am associated with a couple of organizations which are making impact in different spaces, and I'm trying to contribute there. And I also became a career coach during this time. Uh, so I'm also a certified career coach, where I help people right from students from college to young professionals with 4 to 5 years of work experience, to senior professionals, to mid career professionals from 10 to 15 years of work experience. So this is something which I'm passionate about, and yeah. So this has been my journey in short.
Great. So, overall, I think you've covered starting from uh, career building to nation building and organization building. You have been a part of all the different kinds of sectors that are possible. And
Hmm.
overall, आपको एक perspective मिल गया कि like how do you integrate these things for impact, which is जो आपका एक मोटो रहा है हमेशा लाइफ में from the very beginning. So
Right.
maybe let's go to a little bit, in more past of your personal history. कि how are you as a child? आप बचपन में like before 12th, before college, आपको पुश किस तरीके से मिला कि आप लाइक आपकी पहली डिग्री बैचलर्स इन इकोनॉमिक्स थी, तो आपको पुश कैसे मिला कि इकोनॉमिक्स की डिग्री करनी चाहिए? व्हाट वाज द थॉट प्रोसेस देयर?
Right. So Vishal, I think childhood has been जैसे हर एक बच्चे का होता है. So as a child, I think I was a very active person. I was decently good in sports. I was very fairly average in academically, but I was very good in extracurricular. So as a child, I think uh, what I enjoyed most was sports, right? Playing cricket, playing football, playing badminton, hanging out with friends, जो एक normal बच्चे की जिंदगी होती है. But over the years, then after class 12, I took up science in class 11 and 12. I think that decision was not one of the great decisions of my life because science did not suit me. I don't think I was made for science. So in class 12, I decided that one of the streams which I took in class 12, one of the subjects I took was economics. Right?
ओके.
You had regular science studies subjects
ओवरऑल
like
साइंस लेने का डिसीजन आपका अपना था, या और दैट इज लाइक
मेरा
जनरली
अपना
जो
पूरी
बच्चों के
तरह तो
साथ
नहीं
होता
था.
है?
पूरा तो
ओके.
नहीं था. उस समय दो फैक्टर्स थे. फर्स्ट, आई थिंक माय फैमिली वाज इंडिकेटिंग कि अगर आप साइंस लेते हो तो क्लास 12 के बाद आपके ऑप्शंस खुल जाएंगे, राइट? एंड सेकेंडली ऑल्सो आई थिंक अ लॉट ऑफ माय फ्रेंड्स वर गोइंग इनटू द साइंस स्ट्रीम at that point in time. So it's also I wouldn't call it a peer pressure, but I would say that it is something which sort of pushed me towards that. कि ठीक है, घर वाले भी बोल रहे हैं, कुछ सोच समझ के बोल रहे होंगे, मेरे फ्रेंड्स भी साइंस ले रहे हैं, तो लेट्स गिव इट अ ट्राई. बट एट द बैक ऑफ माई माइंड आई ऑलवेज थॉट कि आई एम नॉट मेड फॉर इट. मेरी वैसे क्या कहते हैं, मेरी science wasn't me, right? I was not a very technical person. For me, I was mostly more towards the business and society part of things, so I should have ideally taken commerce or humanities, but I took science and I did fairly okay, not very well, but fairly average. And then the only subject which I really liked was economics. I think that was one of the good decisions that I took कि हम मैंने economics लिया कि देखें वो है तो है क्या. And once after class 12, I decided कि मुझे यही करना है, मुझे इकोनॉमिक्स ही लेना है. और I got into one of the colleges in Delhi University in South Campus, and 3 years of economics. I think that was the time when I really learned about how the global economy works. उसके पहले मुझे कोई आइडिया नहीं था, right? And at that time something interesting was happening कि उस समय वो global financial crisis चल रहे थे 2007 में, 2006-7 के आसपास. So anything which we would study in class, our professors would follow it up with a very good example from the financial world, from the crisis itself. कि right, for example, डिमांड सप्लाई की कोई प्रॉब्लम चल रही है अभी, राइट? वो डिमांड सप्लाई को एक्सप्लेन करने के लिए किया कि हाँ ठीक है, अभी जो क्राइसिस चल रहा है, हाउ डू यू एक्चुअली रिलेट विद दैट. So that was very I mean, that was in real sense hands-on learning. So we were actually studying economics at a time when all of this stuff was happening. And at that time, I think Indian economy was also growing. So they would give a lot of examples about how economics really works, how microeconomic works, at a household level, and how do you connect that with the macroeconomic world, right? And then how do you connect with the global economy. So वो पूरा इकोनॉमिक सिस्टम समझने के बाद ये समझ में आ गया कि अगर आपको कुछ भी लाइफ में करना है, right? Whether you want to become a businessman, whether you want to become an engineer, whether you want to become a doctor, whether you want to become an entrepreneur. So anything you want to become, I feel economics is something which everybody should study, right? It gives you a very different. It really opens up your mind and your ability to connect dots between various aspects of your professional life. तो इकोनॉमिक्स एक ऐसा सब्जेक्ट है, मुझे लगता है आज के दिन किसी को भी, कोई कुछ भी कर रहा है, उसको डेफिनेटली ये तो परस्यू करना ही चाहिए, चाहे वो कॉमर्स बैकग्राउंड से हो, चाहे वो साइंस से हो, चाहे वो ह्यूमैनिटीज से हो, चाहे वो आर्ट से हो, किसी भी सब्जेक्ट, किसी भी स्ट्रीम से हो, दे शुड डेफिनेटली परस्यू दिस सब्जेक्ट. So
Yeah.
that's how, uh, and I made some great friends in my college. तो वही जो रेगुलर जर्नी रहती है।
इंटरेस्टिंग। सो आपका इतना टाइम, बिकॉज यू हैव स्पेंट अ लॉट ऑफ द टाइम इन द एजुकेशन सेक्टर, सो आज की डेट में व्हाट इज योर पर्सपेक्टिव ऑन दिस? लाइक टू थिंग्स आर देयर, कि एक तो ट्वेल्थ क्लास के बाद, लाइक ट्वेल्थ क्लास में, टेंथ क्लास के बाद जब हम स्ट्रीम सेलेक्ट करते हैं, तो देयर इज अ लॉट ऑफ प्रेशर ऑन स्टूडेंट्स की साइंस ले लो, क्योंकि जैसा आपको खुद भी बोला गया कि अपॉर्चुनिटीज ज़्यादा हैं वहाँ पे, बिकॉज साइंस आपने लिया तो आप आगे जाके कॉमर्स वाली फील्ड में भी घुस सकते हो, जैसे आप खुद ही इकोनॉमिक्स वाले में आ गए, बट वंस यू गो इनटू कॉमर्स या आर्ट्स तो आप इंजीनियरिंग और उसमें नहीं जा सकते, मेडिकल में नहीं जा सकते। तो एक पॉइंट यहाँ का कि लाइक, डज दैट रियली मैटर, और डू यू रियली हैव टू चूज एट दैट स्टेज, और इज साइंस द बेस्ट ऑप्शन? फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन इज दैट। एंड फिर ट्वेल्थ, मतलब वंस ट्वेल्थ इज डन, तो हम आते हैं कि लाइक मेजोरिटी आइदर मेडिकल को हटा देते हैं। मेडिकल बेसिकली बहुत ही क्लियर कट होता है लोगों का कि मेरे को डॉक्टर ही बनना है, तो वो तो अलग ही हो गया। बट उसके अलावा जिसके पास ऑप्शन नहीं होता है, तो वो फिर मतलब मेंटालिटी ऐसी है कि इंजीनियरिंग कर लेते हैं, उसके बाद फिगर आउट कर लेंगे, बिकॉज इंजीनियरिंग कर ली तो कहीं पे भी जा सकते हैं, कुछ भी, मतलब बिजनेस भी कर सकते हैं, नॉर्मल सॉफ्टवेयर इंजीनियरिंग की जॉब भी कर सकते हैं, प्रोडक्ट मैनेजर भी बन सकते हैं, मतलब एनी काइंड ऑफ जॉब इज ओपन। तो व्हाट इज योर पर्सपेक्टिव नाउ दैट यू हैव, मतलब आपके खुद के साथ भी हुआ है, एंड नाउ दैट यू हैव बीन इन द एजुकेशन स्पेस फॉर मोर देन 10 years, व्हाट इज योर थॉट ऑन दिस?
Good question. So I think why when we were studying, when I was studying, उस समय ज़माना बहुत डिफरेंट था। अब ज़माना
ट्रू।
काफ़ी बदल गया है,
यस।
right? At that point in time, if you were an engineer, you either went into a technical role, or you typically did an MBA, a management course after that, and then become a manager in a role, or work at the intersection of technical stuff and management within an organization. अब ज़माना काफ़ी बदल गया है। मुझे ये लगता है कि today it's not only about engineering, it is about quality engineering, right? If you look at it, and if you look at the data as well, uh, even top IITs, right, including IIT Bombay, including IIT Delhi, including IIT Roorkee, even those students from those colleges are not getting their dream packages. It's not that they don't have jobs, but they're not getting their dream packages, right? And they are the best people in the country, the brightest of them all, right? So in today's time, I think the question is not of accessibility to engineering programs. It's about mostly accessibility to quality education, number one. Number two, I feel that because of the advent of emerging technologies, which is moving at a very fast pace, right? उस समय अगर आप एक इंजीनियर हो, आप एक टेक्निकल बंदे हो, आपको आईटी के बारे में पता होना चाहिए, टेक्नोलॉजिकल स्टफ के बारे में पता होना चाहिए। और अगर आप एक दूसरे स्ट्रीम से, आपको ज़रूरत नहीं है जानने की। सो इन टुडेज़ टाइम आई फील एनी पर्सन अगेन, along with economics, every person, especially people who are in the business world, in commerce world, they should also have a fundamental understanding of technologies, right? For that, they don't have to necessarily do an engineering course of 4 years, but they should definitely do a short workshop or a certification or some kind of a program where they understand how these emerging technologies are changing the world. तो मेरे हिसाब से ये एक नेसेसिटी हो गई है, every person who's entering the professional world, to understand how they impact. Because I mean, face it, right? Technology हमारे bedroom तक घुस गया है. It's not really about how it is impacting our professional world. हमारे bedroom तक घुस गया है, right? Anything which we do is impacted by technology. So you can, it is very understanding. It's very important कि any person who, if you're an engineering or not, if you're an engineer or not, if you're a doctor or not, if you're even in social sciences, uh, it is very important for you to get a basic fundamental understanding of how basic technologies work and how they're impacting different industries, right? That is extremely important. And at the same time, you can use certain tools, and these technologies are very useful to you at certain in some in some context, right? They help you basically make your work more efficient and make your work more innovative. ठीक है, तो ये एक टूल, एक बहुत बेनिफिशियल टूल के फॉर्म में आया है हर एक की जिंदगी में. एट द सेम टाइम, आई फील इमर्जिंग टेक्नोलॉजीज also provide you a lesson in adaptability, right? It teaches you कि भाई आज के ज़माने में you have to reinvent, you have to evolve after every few years, right? And if you don't do that, then you're going to fall behind, right? And technology is a true example कि अगर आप कंटिन्यूस लर्निंग आज के दिन नहीं कर रहे हो, लाइफ लॉन्ग लर्निंग की फिलोसफी अपने लाइफ में नहीं अपना रहे हो, तो फिर देन यू आर गोइंग टू हैव अ लॉट ऑफ फियर ऑफ मिसिंग आउट, and which can see happening all the time today. ठीक है, तो to answer your question, I think what you want to take after class 12 is completely dependent on what your interests are, what your aptitude is, and what your exam results are, right? उसको तो कोई चेंज नहीं कर सकता,
यस।
लेकिन उसको लेने के बावजूद, उसके लेने के बाद आपको एक सर्टेन लेवल ऑफ अंडरस्टैंडिंग ऑफ बेसिक टेक्नोलॉजीज एंड बेसिक सॉफ्ट स्किल्स एंड बेसिक न्यू एज स्किल्स होनी चाहिए। इसका कोई मतलब कोई दूसरा उपाय है ही नहीं।
ट्रू।
Yeah.
सो नेक्स्ट मे बी वी कैन टॉक अबाउट आफ्टर ग्रेजुएशन आपने अपने फादर की फर्म में काम किया। सो व्हाट वाज दैट लाइक एंड यू स्टेड देयर फॉर अ ईयर। सो
मैंने immediately after my economics honors, the moment I completed my economics honors, my dad said कि why don't you come to my trading company, आप यहाँ पे आके थोड़ा सा काम समझो, और जब तक आपको कोई अपने इंटरेस्ट की जॉब नहीं मिलती है, आपको ये उस समय आई वाज आल्सो फिगरिंग आउट दैट व्हाट इज इट दैट आई रियली वांट टू डू, राइट? My father said that, why don't you get some practical experience while working in the company, and then side by side you can start looking out for opportunities, internships and jobs. uh, उनका जो काम था, what he used to say, देखो तुमने इकोनॉमिक्स ऑनर्स तो कर लिया है, लेकिन ये जो काम मैं करता हूँ, इसमें बहुत ज़्यादा पढ़ाई लिखाई की ज़रूरत है नहीं। क्योंकि ये पूरा एक फील्ड ऐसा है, इट्स अ बिज़नेस, और इस बिज़नेस में आपको बेसिक एक्सपीरियंस चाहिए, आपको एक अच्छा सप्लाई चेन चाहिए, और आपको अच्छे बायर्स चाहिए। तो आप एक तरफ से कपड़ा खरीदोगे और दूसरी तरफ में कपड़ा बेचोगे। तो इसमें बहुत ज़्यादा जो आपने पढ़ा है वो शायद अप्लाई ना हो। और तो उनने मेरे को थोड़ा डिस्करेज किया कि आप इस फील्ड में मत घुसो, एंड दिस इज अ वेरी लेबर, यू टू डील विद अ लॉट ऑफ लेबर, यू टू डील विद बायर्स, सप्लायर्स। इट कुड वर्क 30 इयर्स बैक, बट उसमें ना मेरा इंटरेस्ट था, और वो कोई बहुत ज्यादा फ्लरिशिंग बिजनेस भी नहीं था मेरे फादर का। सो इफ यू कैन से दैट इट वाज अ वेरी वेरी मिलियन डॉलर बिलियन डॉलर कंपनी, इट वाजंट। तो उसमें कोई स्कोप भी ग्रोथ का नहीं लग रहा था, और इवन द कंपनी वाजंट डूइंग वेरी वेरी वेल एट दैट पॉइंट इन टाइम, right? So he discouraged me. He said, he wanted me to be in the financial world. He always said कि यार तुम ना ये सब छोड़ के किसी join a investment bank, right? Or you become a financial analyst somewhere. So he thought though, that field was very cool, right? And his dream was that, why don't you go to the United States and work in the Wall Street? That was his ideal, his ideal scenario, ideal dream for his son. Something of that effect. तो बस I worked there for 8 9 months, and I did learn a little bit about uh, how the textile business, garment business basically works, कि कपड़ा कहाँ से लाया जाता है, सैम्पलिंग कैसे होती है, उसके बाद आप बायर को कैसे अपना सैंपल प्रेजेंट करते हो, फिर कोट्स कैसे लेते हो, फिर अल्टीमेटली कैसे सप्लाई करते हो, तो पूरा एक वो चीज़ बेसिक लेवल पे समझी मैं।
इंटरेस्टिंग एंड लाइक आफ्टर दैट व्हाट यू डिड इज entirely different from that. So उसके बाद आपने एमबीए किया एंड एमबीए के बाद you got into policy making and that was the beginning of your journey into nation building in a way. So
उसके
how
बाद
did
मैंने
that start?
टीसीएस ज्वाइन किया।
Oh yes, Tisco. Yeah, yeah.
उसके बाद मैंने, so after this I got an opportunity,
Yeah,
as
yeah.
you rightly pointed out, something completely different. In fact, even from the point of view of careers, right? वो जो मैंने जॉब ली थी, तो अगर आप मेरी जर्नी देखोगे, जो भी मैंने जॉब ली है वो काफी हटके है बाकी लोगों से, बाकी
From
चीजों
the
से।
yeah, yeah, yeah. True.
From regular, run of the mill jobs and sectors, I actually joined something very different. And the idea really was, वहाँ पे it was a public private partnership where the government, the industry and the academic institution, they were all coming together कि हमको इंडिया का टेलीकॉम सेक्टर को प्रमोट करना है, उसको बढ़ावा देना है, और हमें लोकल मैन्युफैक्चरिंग को हमें बढ़ावा देना है। तो उसको करने के लिए गवर्नमेंट हैड कम आउट विद अ पॉलिसी दैट, इंडियन आईआईटीज एंड इंडियन टेक्निकल इंस्टीट्यूशंस कम आउट विद अ लॉट ऑफ रिसर्च प्रोडक्ट्स, राइट? लॉट ऑफ प्रोटोटाइप्स। बट वो क्या होता है, वो रिसर्च प्रोडक्ट कमर्शियलाइज नहीं हो पाता, वो आप एज अ रिसर्च पेपर ही रह जाता है। तो इतने ब्राइट लोग, इतना रिसर्च हो रहा है, इतना काम हो रहा है, पर उसको कोई कमर्शियलाइज़ नहीं करना। तो उनने एक बड़ा यूनिक मॉडल बनाया है कि कि अ, अगर कोई भी हमारे टेलीकॉम इंडस्ट्री को या कोई भी हमारे टेलीकॉम ऑपरेटर को, उस समय जैसे एयरटेल थे, वोडाफोन यूज्ड टू बी कॉल्ड हचेस एट दैट टाइम, हच, टाटा टेली सर्विसेज, वो सब कंपनी जो थी, अगर उनको कोई भी रिक्वायरमेंट है, वो इंडिया से बाहर से ना खरीदें, वो पहले ही ट्राई करें कि वो उनको इंडिया में ही मिल जाए, और आईआईटीज़ उसको प्रोड्यूस करके दे देंगे, प्रोटोटाइप बना के दे देंगे, एंड देन दे कैन पार्टनर विद देम एंड प्रोवाइड देम विद व्हाटएवर नेसेसरी सपोर्ट और प्रोडक्ट और सर्विसेज दे रिक्वायर, एंड गवर्नमेंट विल क्रिएट एन इनेबलिंग फ्रेमवर्क बिटवीन देम। तो जो गवर्नमेंट है वो एक इनेबलिंग फ्रेमवर्क बनाएगी, जो कि गवर्नमेंट का जनरली काम होता है कि हम अपने देश को बढ़ाने के लिए अपने इंडस्ट्री को, एकेडमिक्स एकेडेमिया को कैसे बेस्ट लेवरेज कर सकें, राइट? So now if you were to ask me that what were your learnings there, I think the best part is that in that job what I really learned was uh, how what are the different types of professions, right? What are the different walks of life within the professional world, and how they operate and how they are different from each other. For example, अगर हम गवर्नमेंट में काम कर रहे हैं किसी के साथ, right? If you're working with the government of India, we working with the highest bureaucrat, राइट? द जॉइंट सेक्रेटरी, द एडिशनल सेक्रेटरी, द सेक्रेटरी, लाइक वो जो इंडिया के सबसे टॉप आईएएस ऑफिसर्स होते हैं, तो वो लोग कैसे काम करते हैं, वो लोग डिसीजंस कैसे बनाते हैं, एनी डिसीजन दे मेक इज गोइंग टू इम्पैक्ट द एंटायर कंट्री, कंट्री ऑफ 1.4 मिलियन पीपल, राइट? एंड हाउ दे बेसिकली टेक इंस्ट्रक्शन फ्रॉम द पॉलिटिकल क्लास, वो मिनिस्टर्स के साथ कैसे काम करते हैं, वो इंडस्ट्री के साथ कैसे काम करते हैं. सो आई गॉट a 360 degree bird's eye view of how the bureaucrats work, how the government works, right? And how they create policies, how they make enabling environment, then how did they deal with different stakeholders. Governments को बहुत different stakeholders का काम करना पड़ता है. They have to work with the industry, they have to manage the expectations of the citizens of India. They have to then also sort of report and tell them about their progress to the minister or the people they are reporting to, which is essentially the political class. गवर्नमेंट ये साइड हो गई. सेकंड पार्ट मुझे सीखने को मिला कि इंडस्ट्री कैसे काम करती है, क्योंकि इंडस्ट्री, टेलीकॉम इंडस्ट्री, सो व्हाट डू हाउ डू दे थिंक, what is their what is it that they are driven by? They are essentially driven by how do they create shareholder value, how do they create profits for their company, right? How do they increase their market size, their market penetration, and how do they do it in a way that's most effective for them, right? तो उनका mindset बड़ा डिफरेंट रहता है. एंड देन there's third completely different world which is the academics, जहाँ पे जो आपका प्रोफेसर है, जो आपके एकेडमिक्स है, वो एक बड़े डिफरेंट लेवल पे काम करते हैं. दे आर ड्रिवन बाय इंटेलेक्चुअल सिमुलेशन, right? They are driven by how many research papers we are producing, right? They are driven by how do they create the next set of uh, talent in the country, which is essentially through teaching, right? और उनको इतना ज्यादा कमर्शियली, वो इतना ज्यादा कमर्शियल बेंट ऑफ माइंड नहीं होता है. So imagine these three different type of three walks of professional lives, and you're actually, and all three of them with different experiences, different sort of goals, right? Different objectives, and you're bringing all three of them together, and they have different expectations. तीनों का mindset different. So how do you bring them together on the same table and make sure they work together, and at the same time make sure that उन तीनों, वो लोग तीनों एक कॉमन पेज पे आ जाए, जहाँ पे कॉन्फ्लिक्ट मिनिमम हो, बिकॉज एवरीबडी विल हैव देयर ओन सेट ऑफ uh, expectations and their own ego, right? So this was a great opportunity for me to coordinate between these three different sets of stakeholders, government, industry and academia. और वहां से मेरा एक्चुअल दिमाग शुरू खुला, and I spent a considerable amount of time in different IITs. I actually stayed within those IITs, worked with different professors to understand how they are working. So technically, I think that was my first exposure to the world of education.
Interesting. And like, how does someone get a job like this? Matlab, let's say whoever is watching this podcast, वो bachelor student है या master student है. So what are the opportunities to work in a sector like this where there's a, like, it's a private public partnership kind of thing? How, किस type से job ढूंढे, like actionably what is the process, as well as what are they looking for in terms of skills inside the person? What does a person do to get a job like this?
दैट्स अ गुड गुड क्वेश्चन विशाल. सो आप ये समझो कि विद इन टू आई एम टॉकिंग अबाउट 2010 11 12, राइट?
Yeah.
उस समय ना दिस होल थिंग वाज न्यू. उस समय ऐसी अपॉर्चुनिटीज बहुत लिमिटेड थी. जो मुझे मिली थी वो एक्चुअली उस समय एक रेफरेंस के थ्रू मैं इंटरव्यू के लिए गया था. दिस वाज़न्ट एन ओपन जॉब पोजीशन. It was a referenced position, but obviously I had to give the interview, and I had my set of interviews. I cracked those interviews eventually. तो वो उस समय, एंड दिस वाज द फर्स्ट टाइम, दिस आजकल हम जो इतना सुनते हैं एकेडमिक, इंडस्ट्री इंटीग्रेशन पार्टनरशिप, वो उस समय इन लोगों ने शुरू किया था. दैट वाज द फर्स्ट टाइम, पीपल दैट टाइम पीपल hadn't heard of this kind of stuff, right? Or even if they had heard, it was a very at a very nascent stage. तो आज के दिन अपॉर्चुनिटीज ऐसे स्पेस में बहुत ज्यादा है आजकल. फॉर एग्जांपल, if you want to be in the public sector, or you want to serve the society, that generally there are two three ways to go about it. The first is that you enter politics itself, which is not everybody's cup of tea. Second, you try for civil services. आप यूपीएससी दो. अब उसमें भी यूपीएससी आपको क्रैक करना पड़ेगा, ठीक है, तभी आप घुस पाएंगे. तो वो एक कंपेटिटिव एग्जाम के थ्रू है. And the third way is, again, then you work for a not for profit organization. You join an NGO. You join an NGO which is uh, working towards in a particular sector, right? And you work towards, and you join that NGO, and you work towards that mission of yours. But now this fourth pillar which has emerged is really your these new age jobs in public policy itself, right? अब public policy में आज के दिन आपके पास काफी opportunities है. Now this sector is very developed, or is very rewarding in the West, राइट? इंडिया में इट्स स्टिल इवॉल्विंग. इंडिया में अभी काफी इवॉल्व हो रहा है, बट इवन द गवर्नमेंट्स हैव रियलाइज दैट वी नीड टू गेट bright young people to work for us, right? Who can contribute to the society, who can contribute to the work of the government itself, to the work of the government bureaucrat, to the work of the political class, and they can bring in, and they bring in fresh perspectives. Who brings in fresh perspective. So today, you have plenty of such opportunities and openings which keep coming. There are public policy organization, even MNCs today, right? A lot of these big tech firms, they have a public policy department where you can go and work. Then there are these statutory bodies or constitutional bodies in the country. For example, आपका नीति आयोग हो गया, राइट? फिर आपकी मिनिस्ट्रीज हैं, आपका इन्वेस्ट इंडिया हो गया, स्टार्टअप इंडिया हो गया, जहाँ पे यू गेट एन अपॉर्चुनिटी टू वर्क with the policy makers themselves and contribute to nation building through different areas. Now, how do you get through this kind of how do you bag this kind of a role? Again, it is different for different organization, but basically what these people look at is that, number one, they look at your academic qualification. They definitely look at your academic qualification. Number two, they look at what is your interest. आप ये करना क्यों चाहते हो, ठीक है? क्या आप पर्पस ड्रिवन हो, क्या आपको कोई इम्पैक्ट बनाना है, राइट? एंड नंबर थ्री, हाउ विल यू ऐड वैल्यू टू द रोल इटसेल्फ, right? So these three things: academic qualification, your genuine interest in the role, and finally what kind of value you can add to the organization. I think these are three things which they see. uh, Still, I would say, not a very popular opinion, but in these kind of roles there is still a lot of referencing which happens, which means that if you know the right person within the organization, right, then your job becomes slightly easier. But at the same point in time, you still have to prove your worth, right? आपको फिर भी अगर आप एक बार एंट्री ले भी लेते हो, और उसके बाद आपको परफॉर्म तो करना ही पड़ेगा, right? So so now the government, the public sector has become very open to uh, involving the youth and people who are graduates and postgraduates, essentially young professionals, in policy making itself. If not policy making, at least a policy implementation part of things.
So, I think there are a few more points in nation building जो हम cover कर लेते हैं. So, what was LAMP Fellowship and what was your role in it?
Excellent. So I think public policy में इंडिया के जो सबसे one of the most respected organizations PRS Legislative Research. So directly after my MBA, I applied for a role there as an outreach manager, and I backed that role. And that was one of the turning points of my life. I think one of the, so to say, key milestones. The reason being that this was a very very unique organization. ऐसा ऑर्गेनाइजेशन पूरे इंडिया में है ही नहीं। वेस्टर्न कंट्रीज में क्या होता है कि आपका ऐसा इंस्टीट्यूशन पार्लियामेंट के अंदर ही होता है, जो आपके मेंबर्स ऑफ पार्लियामेंट को रिसर्च सपोर्ट प्रोवाइड करता है। इंडिया में, और तो इंडिया में ऐसा है ही नहीं। तो द फाउंडर्स एंड माय एक्स बॉस, दे डिसाइडेड, दे केम टुगेदर, दे सेड वी वांट टू सॉल्व दिस जेन्युइन प्रॉब्लम, दैट हाउ डू यू स्ट्रेंथन द वर्क ऑफ अ लेजिस्लेटर इन द कंट्री, right? So the member of parliament, they're not a part of the government. I mean, some members of parliament are become part of the government, but the rest are not, right? So people who are not part of the treasury branch, which are not a part of the government and are regular members of parliament, their job is essentially to question the work of the government. कि वो कोई भी पॉलिसी ला रही है, कोई भी बिल ला रही है, उसको क्वेश्चन कैसे किया जाए कि वो पॉलिसी बन कैसे रही है, राइट? क्या वो इंडिया के सिटीजन्स के फेवर में है? अगर जो पॉलिसी ला रहे हैं उसको और स्ट्रॉन्ग कैसे किया जाए, राइट? उसको क्रिटिकली एनालाइज कैसे किया जाए? उसको करने के लिए मेंबर्स ऑफ पार्लियामेंट रिक्वायर अ लॉट ऑफ रिसर्च, दे रिक्वायर डेटा, दे रिक्वायर they need to speak with different industry stakeholders, right? So that kind of a support is not there with the members of parliament, which can help them raise questions uh, to the government, and at the same time also analyze any sort of policy which they're bringing. तो उसको सपोर्ट को, उस चीज को सॉल्व करने के लिए ये ऑर्गेनाइजेशन बनाई गई थी, राइट? इन द ऑर्गेनाइजेशन, how it transformed my life. Number one, I had great bosses. I think I was reporting to there was an immediate boss I had, and there was a super boss who was the president of the organization. I got some of the brightest people I've ever worked with, and they gave me a lot of ownership in my work. They gave me a lot of exposure. They gave me a lot of opportunities to attend various talks, seminars, and opportunity to uh, engage with members of parliament. So imagine you're working for an organization जिसमें आप members of parliament से directly interact कर रहे हो, right? और ये members of parliament, हर member of parliament approximately, जो लोकसभा member of parliament, वो 20 to 25 लाख लोगों का leader होता है, right? So typically one constituency has about 20 25 lakh people, and they are extremely smart people, right? They have the best of the management skills, uh, and they are जिसको कहते हैं वो जनता के लीडर होते हैं, राइट? तो इन लोगों के साथ काम करना एक अलग ही लेवल का आपको फुलफिलमेंट देता है, एक अलग ही लेवल की लर्निंग होती है, बिकॉज दीज पीपल are extremely smart. They know they are the best people in people management. They have the best people management skills, and they know nitty gritty कि एक citizen की problem क्या है और उसको कैसे solve किया जाए, right? And they are of course political very smart. So उसके within that organization, I felt that if I am supporting these members of parliament in different ways, imagine आप पूरे नेशन को किस लेवल का इम्पैक्ट कर रहे हो। अगर आप एक मेंबर ऑफ पार्लियामेंट को, एक कंस्टिट्यूएंसी को भी सपोर्ट प्रोवाइड करते हो, तो आप उस पूरी कंस्टिट्यूएंसी पे इम्पैक्ट कर रहे हो किसी ना किसी तरह। Coming to the Lamb Fellowship was a special project of PRS Legislative, which basically uh, uh, where young Indians below the age of 25 got an opportunity to work with member of parliament, right? So we had about 50 lamb fellows, approximately 50 lamb fellows, which we would, you know, select every year. And these were the brightest people in the country who really wanted to make a difference. Uh, and they went through a very, very rigorous interview selection process. And then these lamb fellows was attached to a member of parliament for 1 year, approximately 1 year, which is basically 3 parliament sessions. तो वो उसकी हम पूरी ट्रेनिंग करते हैं, उनको फिर पूरा सिखाते हैं कि भाई आपको साथ आपको उनको एक नॉलेज, पहले तो नॉलेज प्रोवाइड करते हैं कि उनको क्या-क्या चीज़ें ऐसी चाहिए होंगी व्हेन दे सर्व द मेंबर ऑफ पार्लियामेंट, राइट? दे शुड बी अवेयर ऑफ द बेसिक इश्यूज और द बेसिक पॉलिसीज विद इन द कंट्री जो ऑपरेट कर रही हैं, राइट? दे शुड हैव बेसिक अंडरस्टैंडिंग ऑफ कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ऑफ इंडिया, इकोनॉमी, पॉलिटिक्स, सोसाइटी उनको जेन्युइन होना चाहिए। थर्ड, दे शुड आल्सो देन लर्न हाउ टू वर्क विद द मेंबर ऑफ पार्लियामेंट। कि आप एमपी के साथ काम करोगे तो क्या कुछ चीज़ करनी चाहिए, क्या नहीं करना चाहिए, कितना बोलना चाहिए, कितना नहीं बोलना चाहिए। एमपी के ऑफिस में आप कैसे काम करो। तो इमेजिन यू आर एक्चुअली लीडिंग दैट एंटायर फेलोशिप where you're getting these 50 people, and these 50 people work with different members of parliament from different parts of the country who speak different languages, from different political parties from different states, और उनको आप ये प्रोवाइड कर रहे हो तो वो कितना इम्पैक्ट करेगा। सो हियर माय की लर्निंग एसेंशियली व्हिच आई हैव ऑलरेडी हाइलाइटेड वाज दैट पॉलिसी मेकिंग इस देश के अंदर, नेशन बिल्डिंग कैसे हाईएस्ट लेवल पे होती है, राइट। और उससे उस टाइम पे मेरे को बाकी स्टेक होल्डर्स से भी मिलने का बहुत मौका मिला। आई एंगेज विद सम ऑफ द टॉप लीडर्स फ्रॉम द इंडस्ट्री, सीईओज, मैनेजिंग डायरेक्टर्स, टॉप political leadership, members of parliament, ministers, and top academicians, because we used to hold these academic sessions, जहाँ पे जहाँ पे different people, different experts from different walks of life come and conduct a सेशन विद एमपीज। सो फॉर एग्जाम्पल, अगर हमें एक में आज के दिन एग्रीकल्चर में क्या चल रहा है, किसी मेंबर ऑफ पार्लियामेंट पे उसको सीखना है, किसी मेंबर ऑफ पार्लियामेंट को अपनी नॉलेज बढ़ानी है उस बारे में, तो वील गेट सम ऑफ द बेस्ट एक्सपर्ट्स इन द कंट्री जो एग्रीकल्चर को समझते हो। और उस सेशंस को हम ऑर्गेनाइज करते थे, एंड देन at the in the due process we would sit in that in those sessions, and then we would also learn about it. So this was a fantastic journey. I think again this was something very different from your regular
या
run of the mill job. Yeah,
एंड आई थिंक आपके हर स्टेप में एक एजुकेशन एंड एकेडमिक्स से लिंक का थीम दिख रहा है, सो हियर आल्सो
yeah.
देयर इज अ बिट ऑफ नॉलेज ट्रांसफर एंड लर्निंग न्यू थिंग्स.
Sorry, I forgot to mention that. While I was working for this organization, then I got an opportunity. Actually, I was then recognized by the U.S. Department of State, the US government, for my work, and I was selected as one of the young leaders from the country. And I bagged the IVLP fellowship, which is a very prestigious fellowship of the United States Department of State, United Government's Department of State. तो उसके अंदर हमें एक अवार्ड मिला था फॉर आवर वर्क इन PRS।
वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग. सो लैम फेलोशिप आज भी है एक्टिव
आज भी
और
बहुत
समथिंग?
एक्टिव है। इनफैक्ट उसको देख के और भी बहुत सारे फेलोशिप इंस्पायर होके और भी फेलोशिप्स आ गए हैं। अब जैसे कुछ चीफ मिनिस्टर्स फेलोशिप है, हर हर कई स्टेट्स ऐसे हैं जो अपने खुद के चीफ मिनिस्टर्स फेलोशिप चला रहे हैं, जिसमें वो यंग इंडिविजुअल्स को अपने स्टेट से या इफ नॉट फ्रॉम देयर ओन स्टेट, from different parts of the country. Uh, they again they select them basis the application, and they actually attach them with different district officers, different civil servants within the country, within their own state. Yeah. So, for example, I think if I correctly remember, the state of Maharashtra was running this chief minister's fellowship where it was, I think, only for the Maharashtrian students or people or students who reside within Maharashtra, and if they get selected, then they were attached to one district official, or civil servant or state civil servant who would work, who was working in a particular area. For example, you have a district officer from Pune, so you will be attached to one district officer from Pune. Or if you're an officer within the chief minister's office, so डिपेंडिंग ऑन आपको कौन सा असाइनमेंट मिलता है, आप किसके साथ अटैच होते हो, आप एक्चुअली वर्क करते हो उस ऑफिसर के साथ टू हेल्प डेवलप दैट इंटायर एरिया विद इन
हाँ,
योर विच यू बीन असाइंड।
interesting. So, for like again for someone who's listening to this, जो अगर आज की डेट में पब्लिक पॉलिसी में एट अ यंग एज घुसना चाहता है, तो दीज काइंड्स ऑफ फेलोशिप आई थिंक बिकम्स अ वेरी गुड पाथवे उस चीज में जाने के लिए, राइट? तो again, what is like actionably they can implement, or like what should they learn before applying to this kind of a role? कि मतलब obviously their chances of getting this role increases, as well as how to decide if this is for me or not.
राइट। सो आई थिंक देखिए, बेस्ट वे तो ये होता है कि आप अपने लेवल का रिसर्च कर लीजिए पहले, कि व्हाट ऑल दैट fellowship or whatever role you're going for, what all that does that entail। ठीक है, उसके बारे में जितना पढ़ सकते हैं पढ़ लीजिए। सेकंड, आई थिंक आपको सबसे पहले दूसरी चीज़ आपको ये करनी चाहिए कि आपको उनके एलुमनाई से बात करनी चाहिए, राइट? जो वो ऑलरेडी कर चुके हैं, एंड नॉट 1 नॉट 2, आई वुड से अगर आपको मौका मिले कम से कम 5 लोगों से बात करिए जो वो प्रोग्राम कर चुके हैं पहले. आई थिंक नथिंग विल गिव यू मोर इंसाइट्स देन पर्सनल एक्सपीरियंस इटसेल्फ. तो उनसे उससे बात करिए, और उसके साथ साथ आप ये भी एनालाइज करिए कि वेयर डज दैट इंटायर पब्लिक पॉलिसी program which you're doing, where does it fit in the longer scheme of things, right? आपकी करियर गोल्स में फिट कहाँ हो रहा है, राइट? एंड टू योर क्वेश्चन अबाउट वेयर यू हाउ डू यू नो दैट कि ये मेरे लिए है या नहीं, मेरे हिसाब से अगर आपको कुछ ही चीज़ का पता करना है ना कि आपके ये आपके लिए है कि नहीं, मेरे हिसाब से आपको सबसे पहले उसमें एक इंटर्नशिप कर लेनी चाहिए, राइट? आई थिंक जब आप इंटर्नशिप कर लोगे, आप फिगर आउट कर लोगे. No matter how much anybody talks about, nobody how many classes you attend, nobody how many people you speak to, until unless you go through the process yourself and your experiences, you will never know whether this is meant for you or not. So I think there are opportunities today for you to also get some sort of a training, some sort of an exposure into whether this is meant for you or not. Or even if not, I would say that you should, if nothing is working out, just go and meet your local legislator or your local political leader, right? And say that you want to work with him or her, right? Or even if that person says, I will not have the bandwidth to give you any work and stuff, just start doing work for that person. I think that works really well. For example, if there is a local member of parliament and he's working on certain issues and he's talking about certain issues, start hearing what he or she is interested about. स्टार्ट क्रिएटिंग सम काइंड ऑफ कॉन्सेप्ट नोट्स. आप उस कॉन्सेप्ट नोट को या जो भी आप प्रिपेयर कर रहे हो उसको उनको ईमेल कर दो. Once, twice, thrice, whenever you start showing interest, the other person will always figure out, or always at some point will realize that this person is really interested and this is someone I should give a chance to. ठीक है, तो अगर आपको अपॉर्चुनिटी नहीं मिलती तो अपॉर्चुनिटी आप क्रिएट करो, राइट? बिकॉज at the end, I feel that what really matters is the other person should be able to gauge that this person is genuinely interested, and he or she is making efforts uh, to make that interest come to some sort of a fruition. तो ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है इस फील्ड के अंदर. Because why I'm saying this is because this field, the public policy field, is still very unstructured in the country. It is not like the corporate sector जहाँ पे हर चीज सेट होती है, प्रोसेसेस सेट होते हैं, एचआर सेट होता है. इसमें बहुत सारे वेरिएबल्स हैं, बहुत सारे डिफरेंट काइंड्स ऑफ you meet very different kind of people, very different kind of stakeholders. So and a lot of people may have their own vested interests. So how do you actually figure out that? How do you bring some sort of a structure to it? So it's best ways to start with working, start interning or start providing some sort of an input, even if it is without any quid pro quo. You should start doing
Yeah,
it, and something eventually will work out.
interesting. Uh, okay. So I think next we can directly move on and talk about Masters Union and like the thought behind it. क्या कोविड की वजह से आया था या फिर मतलब देयर वाज अ पॉइंट, मतलब उस टाइम पे हम इस पॉइंट पे आ चुके थे कि इस टाइप का एजुकेशन सिस्टम रिक्वायर्ड है, एंड व्हाट वाज द थॉट प्रोसेस, एंड वहां से फिर देन वी कैन डिस्कस अपस्किलिंग एंड व्हाई इज अ नॉर्मल कॉलेज नॉट वर्किंग, एंड इस टाइप की एजुकेशन सेल्फ लर्निंग और इस टाइप की चीज़ों की ज़रूरत कैसे पड़ रही है, एंड हाउ इज अ कंपनी लाइक मास्टर्स यूनियन, और अब तो बहुत सारे और हो गए, इज हेल्पिंग दैट.
Excellent, Vishal. So I'll step back and I'd like to point out this is something which I've observed, right, and also learned by speaking to a lot of experts in the field. कि अर्लियर पहले ज़माने में ना, आपको आपने एक एग्ज़ाम दिया, आप एक बढ़िया से कॉलेज में घुस गए, आपको एक ब्रांड वैल्यू मिल गई. लेट्स से वे बैक इन 70s और 80s, राइट? आपने एक आईआईएम अहमदाबाद 1980 में क्रैक किया था, या आपने आईआईटी खड़गपुर क्रैक किया था, एंड दैट टाइम आईआईटी खड़गपुर वाज़ द बिगेस्ट कॉलेज एट दैट पॉइंट इन टाइम. तो आपने वो पढ़ाई करी, आपने उस प्रेस्टिजियस कॉलेज में घुस गए, आपने कॉलेज करने के बाद आपको एक फैंसी से जॉब लग गई, और वो जॉब में टिपिकली आपने 20-25 साल काम किया. 20-25 you work for that company, and then you became the CEO of the company, or you switched also. Typically you worked not more than, let's say, 3 different jobs in your entire career, right? Two to three. So one brand, and that brand value of IIM Ahmedabad or IIT Roorkee or any of the or Harvard Business School could carry your entire had the potential of carrying your entire career for the next 35-40 years. तो आपको वो अगले 40 साल बैठ के खिलाएगा और आपकी ग्रोथ धीरे धीरे होती रहेगी. Also because you're entering such prestigious organization, you're generally already very bright, right? ऐसे ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में जनरली जो घुसता है, इंस्टीट्यूशन में जो लोग घुसते हैं वो ऑलरेडी कुछ लेवल पे ब्राइट होते हैं, राइट? फिर ये इंस्टीट्यूट को और पॉलिश कर लेते हैं. बट दैट हैज चेंज्ड in today's time. If you're even if you're got into the most prestigious institution, most well respected across the world, until and unless you reskill yourself, until and unless you uh, evolve with changing times, until unless you're adding new uh, age benefits or value to the organization, वो brand value will only take you so far. तो जब तक आप अपने आप को रीफॉर्म रीइन्वेंट नहीं करते हो हर 3 से 5 साल, तो वो ब्रांड की वैल्यू आपको तब तक ही खिला सकती है, राइट? या आपकी लाइफ में प्रोग्रेस दे सकती है, प्रोफेशनल प्रोग्रेस दे सकती है. नाउ व्हाई इज दिस हैपनिंग? वन ऑफ द मेन रीजन इज टेक्नोलॉजी. टेक्नोलॉजी हैज बिकम अ लेवलर, राइट? टेक्नोलॉजी सारे लोगों को, सारे प्रोफेशंस को एक लेवल पे लाके खड़ा कर दिया, राइट? तो अगर और इट हैज बिकम a tool which is technology used to exist earlier as well, right? But it wasn't very cheap. Now, because of there is so much data, like there are so many tools, right? There are technology, there's so many foundation technology that things are becoming affordable for people. So technology has not only become accessible but affordable. तो उसकी वजह से, हाँ, बिकॉज ऑफ दैट इट इज फॉर एग्जाम्पल इजियर फॉर यू टू बिकम एन एंटरप्रेन्योर टुडे. आज से 25 साल पहले एक एंटरप्रेन्योर बनना बहुत मुश्किल काम था. आज के दिन एंटरप्रेन्योर बनना ईजी है क्योंकि आपके पास अगर एक अच्छा स्टार्टअप आइडिया है, राइट? इफ यू हैव अ प्रॉब्लम व्हिच कैन रियली बी व्हिच इज अ रियल प्रॉब्लम एंड दैट प्रॉब्लम रिक्वायर्स सम सॉर्ट ऑफ solution, and you have a plan for that, you have a vision for that, and you have some sort of a technology stack, right, which can help you scale that solution or scale that business problem, scale that solution, and you make a good business out of it. तो टेक्नोलॉजी उसको लेवल कर देता है. तो आज के दिन आपके पास बस एक अच्छा आइडिया होना चाहिए और उसको इम्प्लीमेंट करने की कला आनी चाहिए. उतना होगा तो टेक्नोलॉजी बाकी चीजों को काफी लेवल तक लेवल कर देता है. सो बिकॉज ऑफ that brand value which used to carry your name or would give you career progress for the next 40 years, does not apply today, right? It does open doors for you. आपके लिए दरवाजे जरूर खोल देगा, लेकिन वो दरवाजे खोलने के बाद अगर आपने आपको नहीं टाइम्स के साथ चेंज किया, तो फिर वो आपके दरवाजे धीरे धीरे बंद भी हो जाएंगे, राइट? सो मास्टर्स यूनियन का कॉन्सेप्ट जो आप कह रहे हो वो जहाँ तक मेरी अंडरस्टैंडिंग, वो इस तरीके से एमिनेट हुआ था कि इन टुडेज टाइम every person needs to uh, the education should be the education should be shaped in a way where you do things practically, right? Where you make learning hands on, right? Where you are not you're learning by doing, right? And that could only happen if you get more and more practitioners, right, or industry experts who are actually doing who are doing work on ground, who are actually building businesses, right, who are actually building technologies, who are actually building products. How do you make them teachers? Right now, that was a humongous task. This was already happening at some level in various big, reputed institutions. But that percentage of people, percentage of people teaching those courses were smaller. So it was mostly like 80% people were career academics or professors, and 20% of them were practitioners. So our idea or the thesis was that if we build an institution which is more dynamic, right, which does not have to go through many regulations, in that way we will be able to prepare the next generation of business leaders who are adapting with times, right? Adapting with times. How? Because number one, you're getting taught by people who are actually building business there and then, right? Number two, you're building it in a way where your curriculum is not fixed, right? That curriculum dynamically changes. For example, let's say, mithya verse, right? You know you and Anmol are building mithya verse. Now what mithya verse essentially is, democratizing AI technology, right? It is using generative AI technology and VR to solve some of the biggest problems in employment and education sector, right? Now if this technology is चेंजिंग फास्ट. पहले चैट जीपीटी लॉन्च हुआ, फिर उसके बाद जीपीटी ओ आ गया, उसके बाद डैल ई आ गया, तो बहुत सारे लेयर्स उसमें बढ़ते जा रहे हैं. Now for example, tomorrow suddenly there is new technology. Now we would want someone like Vishal or Anmol to come and teach at Masters Union, because अल्टीमेटली इंडस्ट्री को वही चाहिए, वैसे वही टैलेंट चाहिए जो लेटेस्ट चीजों में इक्विप्ड हो, राइट? एंड दैट कुडंट हैपन इन अ रेगुलर इंस्टीट्यूशन कॉलेज, जहाँ पे आपको करिकुलम चेंज करने के लिए बहुत सारे प्रोसेस से गुजरना पड़ता है. फिर वहाँ पे बहुत सारे रेगुलेशंस होते हैं, and there is a committee which says, and it takes time for you to adapt. So that is why a lot of people, reputed institutions have not been able to adapt to the changing times, right? And that is why the industry is like, we do not have hands on uh, talent. I mean, we don't have people who are industry ready. It's not they are not industry ready. They were industry ready, but by the time they actually got placed, right, things had changed. Industry had changed, so they are not adapted. They haven't adapted to the latest tools and techniques. तो हमने उस मास्टर को वैसे सोचा कि हाउ डू वी बिल्ड एन ऑर्गेनाइजेशन वेयर curriculum is changing dynamically, and we a major part of business education is going to be technology education itself, right? How is AI, how is ML, how is data science, how is blockchain, how is IoT, 5G, how are all of these technology changing business education? So we had a major focus there, and we thought, how do we get some of the best technology leaders who are building products, who are actually in the game, who are ahead of times? How do we get them to teach our students? Because by the time they are placed, they should be equipped enough to take on the challenges of that company which they join.
Okay. So, from a upskilling perspective, I think overall, though, it makes sense, and we are also trying to do the same thing with we are placed at Mithyaverse. But because you have been actively involved in this field, so how do you feel कि industry इसको कैसे देख रहा है? Are the people graduating from schools like Masters Union? अभी आई थिंक मास्टर्स यूनियन के 3-4 साल हो गए हैं. सो आर दे गेटिंग प्लेस्ड equally well as compared to students who are graduating from a B school which is already recognized, or at least are they in the similar level? उस सेंस में कैसा है कि how is industry accepting this?
See, industry found this a great idea, at least at the time when we were building, setting it up 0 to 1. This was the need of the hour, and not even a single CEO or a managing director or a technology leader or an entrepreneur we met, uh, there wasn't a single one who didn't like the idea, right? Everybody said कि यार ये जरूरत तो बहुत ज़्यादा है, but it eventually depends on then how do you actually execute it, right? Now, to your question about how the industry is accepting is, I mean, industry is accepting this with open arms, right? क्योंकि ultimately हम उन्हीं की problem solve कर रहे हैं, right? So for the whole idea of such an organization, uh, I mean, I would not only focus on masters, but any organization which is built on solving the problem for the industry has to work backwards. So, for example, if you're building a training program or you're building a practitioner-led curriculum or industry-focused curriculum, it has to be reverse engineered, which means that you have to first understand what is the problem of the industry, what kind of talent do they need, right? What is it that they are building, what kind of support they need, what kind of skills they need, and you reverse engineer it, uh, and then you make the curriculum. But you can't make that curriculum only by having an academician. You will have to actively involve uh, that expert working within the industry itself, to be able to make that curriculum. That is how it's going to become relevant. ठीक है. So the idea was, जब हमने build भी किया था, idea was कि हम एक कोई ऐसा institution नहीं बना रहे हैं which is going to be built by one person, and it's going to be, the idea was that it is going to be positioned in a way, and that time the positioning was that this is an organization for the industry, built by the industry, right? It's a practitioner led program, which means that practitioners not only will teach, but practitioners are the one who are actually running this entire show, right? So that is why it was made in a way, that is why we did not, uh, at that time, acquire a huge land outside Delhi, and set up a fancy big campus there. But the idea was to make this happen within the industry itself. It should be housed within the corporate park, right, where all the companies are, because then it is easier for you to get the practitioners as well as your future recruiters to come and teach uh, 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 at an institution which is convenient to them as well, right? So we wanted to build this entire institution within the corporate park so that it serves the purpose of building a practitioner-led program. तो आपका जो क्वेश्चन है कि has it been accepted by the industry? It has been accepted by the industry. uh, I would not draw a direct comparison between these new age colleges. It could be Masters Union, it could be Mesa, it could be a lot of these new age. No, I think the physics wala has also started a school of innovation. Uh, I'm not sure what the name is, but they've also started something similar. And I'm sure there are other leaders also are building things on similar line. They are building with, there is some acceptance from the industry that look, we need people, we need talent who are plug and play, which means that they should be hired and they should start delivering rather than we spending time, 3 to 6 months training that person, and then after training we realize that this person may or may not be efficient, and then once we train them, that person might find another opportunity. तो ये जरूरत तो है. I would still say that we do not want to compare these new age MBA school, business school, alternate business schools, so to say, with legacy institutions like ISB or IAMs or a lot of these foreign universities as well. Why? Because these new organizations are essentially focused on talent for the startup world, right? A dynamic talent which has slightly more entrepreneurial bent of mind, right? Rather than an MBA mind, like only regular management mind, somebody who has the potential to become an entrepreneur, right? Where you're solving a business problem. Versus these legacy institutions, which are uh, uh, basically focusing on getting their highly talented uh, students placed in a MNC or in the corporate world, right? Who eventually become, these high flying corporate leaders within the company over the years. So they're still catering to that, including companies in the consulting field, in the finance field, in FMCGs, etc., etc., right? Uh, so, however, even these legacy institutions are now building their own entrepreneurship schools and entrepreneurial business schools, where because they've recognized that there is this, the whole idea of that one should build a startup at at some point in time, right? Because if you're not building a startup, or if you're not building something, that it's not cool, right? So this entire uh, notion of that you're not adding value to your career or to the professional world, so to say, if you're not building something cool, right, or building a startup or being a part of startup. So even the legacy institutions have realized. So I would not compare the two different kind of institutions, but I think each of them are adding value in their own ways, and let's see how it
Yes.
goes.
Yeah. Well, I think ऐसा the perspective in general tech में तो पहले भी था ही, because companies like TCS और Wipro और Infosys, ये लोग जब हायर करते हैं तो ये लोग अपना ट्रेनिंग पीरियड रखते ही हैं. दे हैव अ 6 months 1 year ट्रेनिंग पीरियड, बिकॉज कंपनी खुद ही ट्रेन कर रही है, एंड इट्स लाइक अ प्रॉपर एजुकेशनल पीरियड ओनली. उसमें ऐसा नहीं है कि काम करवा रहे हैं, और तो दे हैव देयर ओन कैंपसेस एंड स्टफ लाइक दैट. आई थिंक नाउ अदर फील्ड्स हैव स्टार्टेड अडॉप्टिंग दैट. मास्टर्स यूनियन ने एमबीए वाली चीज करी, सो ऐसे और आई थिंक इज कमिंग अप कि हर फील्ड में ये वाली चीज की जरूरत है. सिर्फ टेक में नहीं कि मतलब सिलेबस आउटडेट हो जा रहा है कॉलेज में और आज के जो इंडस्ट्री में चल रहा है वो कुछ और चल रहा है. So I think that's very interesting. Next, basically, sir, specifically focus towards the tier 3, tier 4, like जिनके पास अब accessibility है इंटरनेट के थ्रू एंड एआई के थ्रू, तो उनके लिए व्हाट इज अ गुड करियर डेवलपमेंट पाथ. स्पेसिफिक फोकस नहीं कर रहे हैं हम किसी चीज पे कि एमबीए या टेक या कुछ भी, बट एक जनरल करियर डेवलपमेंट के एक्शनेबल स्टेप्स क्या हो सकते हैं कि दिस इज द फर्स्ट थिंग, दिस इज द सेकंड थिंग, और हाउ डू दे prepare, what kind of tools should they use, resources that they should use.
Right. So I think there is so much happening everywhere, right? There is so much information. There are so many new tools which have come up. There are so many career options. It is, a young professional or a student is bound to get confused. कि वो शुरू कहाँ से करें? My understanding is first thing is that you have to stop comparing yourself to any of your peers or friends as to what they are doing in their career or what course they are pursuing or what programs they are uh, undertaking or which company they are working for. I think first thing is to understand yourself, right? Self awareness is the key. Now, within that self awareness, it is very important for you to understand that each person is unique, right? Every person has had a distinct past, a distinct academic, uh, sort of, academics, distinct experiences. People have pursued different courses. People have had different aspirations in life, right? At different points in time. When you were young, you wanted to become something. Later on, you became something. You want to do something, and eventually became something else only, right? And different circumstances, right? Different upbringing. So every person has to figure out what their career path is, basis what is it that they have learned in life, and where do they want to take those learnings in the future. सो सबसे पहला पॉइंट मैं किसी को भी यही बोलूंगा, मेरा पहला एडवाइस हमेशा ये रहता है कि हर आदमी अपने में बहुत यूनिक है, ठीक है? तो उसको आपको फिगर आउट करना पड़ेगा कि व्हाट वर्क्स बेस्ट फॉर यू. समथिंग व्हिच वर्क्स वेल फॉर मी मे नॉट वर्क वेल फॉर यू, राइट? और समवन एल्स. तो उसको फिगर आउट करने के लिए सबसे पहले अपना एक स्वॉट एनालिसिस, स्ट्रेंथ, वीकनेसेस, अपॉर्चुनिटी, थ्रेट करना बहुत ज़रूरी है. सेकंड है, I would suggest research. रिसर्च इज एक्सट्रीमली इम्पॉर्टेंट. हम इतना ज़्यादा इम्पोर्टेंस रिसर्च को दे नहीं पाते, बट हर एक स्टूडेंट को, हर एक यंग प्रोफेशनल को रिसर्च करना आना चाहिए, राइट? रिसर्च मीन्स दैट वेयर डू यू what where do you stand right now, what are the capabilities, talents, qualifications, and aspirations you have right now versus what all is available in the market right now, right? What are the skills you should develop, what are the opportunities you should learn about, right? And eventually, after doing your research, you should try to speak to as many people as possible. आई थिंक अगर आपको किसी भी चीज की अंडरस्टैंडिंग लेनी है बेसिक लेवल पे, आप जितने लोगों से बात करोगे उस एरिया से रिलेटेड, आपका एक पर्सपेक्टिव बढ़ता जाएगा, राइट? एंड टॉक टू एज मेनी पीपल एज पॉसिबल. ये भी हम नहीं कर पाते बहुत बार. हम वी इवेंचुअली एंड अप टॉकिंग ओनली टू द करियर काउंसलर, राइट? और ओनली टू वन वन मेंटर, which you may one or two mentors you may have in life. So you eventually end up only speaking to a few set. So I would say that speak to diverse people, different kind of people from different industries, from different walks of life. That will help you get more clarity on कि आपको क्या career path लेना है. At least आपका एक basic level of clarity हो गई, ठीक है? उसके बाद I would say that a lot of the time the colleges and the institution you're working for do not have enough resources or enough time to spend on each and every student, to prepare every student, right? Most importantly, for example, uh, सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट होता है कि भाई आप अपने आप को प्रेजेंट कैसे करते हो एक जॉब अपने एम्प्लॉयर के सामने, राइट? uh, how do you build those skills where you're able to communicate your aspirations and your qualification well in front of a person, so that you're able to crack that job? So interview skills is something which is not focused on, or not personalized enough in this country. That is where I feel that uh, this technology which VR placed has built, right, called AR, VR, the VR placed technology, which is essentially trying to solve this problem, and this problem is huge in the country. Right? Today we have those capabilities, and those capabilities are enhanced so much by the generative AI technology that everything, every interview take, especially the technical interviews, can be as precise as possible. It can be as it can be, as human like as possible, right? It even tells you कि भाई आपको, आप अभी इंटरव्यू के टाइम में नर्वस हो रहे हो, या आपका कंटेंट बहुत ज़्यादा स्ट्रांग नहीं है, या फिर आप जो बोल रहे हो वो, दैट कम्युनिकेट, दैट फ्लुएंसी इज नॉट कमिंग इन योर कम्युनिकेशन. So we have those capabilities today, and those capabilities are very customized, which the students and young college, universities and students can leverage to enhance their potential, enhance their confidence, most importantly, and enhance their clarity before they appear in front of an interviewer, so that they know that they are sufficiently prepared to be able to crack that interview. अब वो crack interview होगा नहीं होगा, that depends on various other factors, but at least you have that confidence that I am well prepared, right? So this aspect of your career path is very important, that how do you actually communicate what is it that you want to do, and whether you're communicating in a way that it was originally intended. कभी कभी हम बहुत सोचते कुछ है और बोल कुछ जाते हैं, राइट, एंड देन लेटर वी रियलाइज कि हमें जो बोलना नहीं चाहिए था, हमें बोलना कुछ और था, और हम बोल कुछ और गए. So the interview aspect is very important, which of course entails strong communication skills, and that can communication skills can only be built if you have, uh, if you read a lot, right? If you read a lot, read different kind of stuff, uh, read on different areas, different topics, different subjects, and speak to different people, different kinds of people who have expertise in different people. So that helps you build perspective and connect dots. और फिर जब आप चीज कम्युनिकेट करोगे ना, वो कम्युनिकेशन अपने आप फ्लो होगा, right? And it also gets the other person interested in you, that okay, you know what, this guy is he knows what he's talking about, and he's not only talking in silos. He's not only talking about one thing. He's able to connect, dots between different subjects, and he's then able to come out with, perspectives on different areas. And this is something which is very very well respected and accepted by the higher authority in general. तो ये एक बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट पार्ट है करियर पाथ को डिस्कस करने में. फाइनली आई थिंक करियर पाथ में आपको जो भी करना हो, कभी-कभी हमें कन्फ्यूज़न रहता है कि यार हम ये चीज़ करें या वो चीज़ करें, वो तो वो कर रहा है। फिर जब कुछ करने जाते हो तब तो कुछ नई चीज़ आ जाती है, राइट? इस फोमो के ट्रैप में नहीं पड़ना है। ये ट्रैप इतना गहरा है कि आदमी को एक से दूसरी चीज़, दूसरे से तीसरे चीज़ से चौथी चीज़, अलग-अलग चीज़ों में जंप करने में लोगों को आजकल टाइम नहीं लगता. तो यू हैव टू फिगर आउट that if you have researched well, and if you have understood that this is your interest area and this is what you want to pursue, then you stick by it for a couple of years. And once you do that, you will be able to build expertise within that area. And later on, your goal should also be that you should be the go-to person for that particular area, right? Ultimately that is how you sell yourself, as that's what personal brand is for me. It's not only presenting yourself on Instagram or on LinkedIn or writing blog posts. It is that also, but it is about when people think about you, when people think about a particular product or a service, or even something they want to take advice on, are you the person who's coming on their mind for this
Yeah.
particular area? That is something you will be able to build over time, but that will only happen when you have understood the depth of something over a period of time.
So, thank you for mentioning VR placed, and I think I will like to add कि VR placed में like you mentioned कि research karna is very important about like in depth what is required and what are the different things that you have to learn, or you know what is एक field में है क्या. So VR placed currently is an interview platform and a
Yeah,
job preparation platform, but we are building this capability जहाँ पे आप using generative AI itself, जहाँ पे आप basically आप अपना dream एक तरीके से डालो कि like this is where I want to be eventually. बट वो स्टेप बाय स्टेप आपको पाथ बताएगा लाइक दिस इज द फर्स्ट स्टेप, लर्न दिस एंड लाइक
yeah,
takes you through step by step through towards that. Initially I think we'll be able to build, let's say, just a path, but eventually using generative AI and image generation, video generation is also coming up so well now कि हम कोर्सेज ही पूरे ऐसे बना सकते हैं कि AI बेस्ड पूरा जनरेटेड कोर्सेज रहेगा, एंड दैट इंक्रीजेस द एक्सेसिबिलिटी जो आज की डेट में टीयर 3 टीयर 4 सिटीज में पॉसिबल नहीं है, स्पेशली इंडिया में जहाँ पे टीचर स्टूडेंट रेशियो बहुत ज़्यादा है, एंड गैप जो एजुकेशन का गैप है वो बहुत ज़्यादा है. सो आई थिंक योर पॉइंट अबाउट रिसर्च will also change in the
yeah.
future जहाँ पे it will also become more accessible and easier to do. I mean, we are also building it. A lot of other people will also build tools around that. So that I think is a good point. So, sir, let's close it off now with one final advice from your end to any job seeker, anyone who's at any place in their career. What will be your advice from your own personal journey?
Right. I think, yeah, my advice is very simple. I think it's a fairly uncomplicated advice कि enjoy a career. मैं तो एक ही चीज़ बोलता हूँ हमेशा कि career forms a very big aspect of your life. Typically आपके 40-50 years, 40-45 years, आप कोई भी एक प्रोफेशनल या कोई भी एक एंटरप्रेन्योर या कोई भी किसी फील्ड में हो, कोई किसी भी ऑक्यूपेशन में हो, वो अपना करियर को देता है, राइट? एंड इवन इफ यू कैलकुलेट 1/3 8 hours का एक वर्क डे, विच इज 1/3 ऑफ योर डे, आप उस पर स्पेंड कर रहे हो. सो इट इज नॉट, when you're spending such a significant amount of your time on your career, on your job, on your profession, on your occupation, it is important that you understand that this is not only for earning your bread, right, or getting name, fame, prestige. It is that also, but it's a time which you should do, spend happily, right? That time should be spent happily and effectively, right? So enjoy your career, and there will be times where your career will go through peaks and troughs. सबकी लाइफ में होता है, ups and downs होंगे. Lull period आएगा, boring period आएगा, there'll be time you'll get stuck, right? So all you have to do is build those capabilities that you are able to navigate that entire career journey for 30, 40, 50 years in a way that makes it worthwhile and makes it fulfilling, right? It should not be a constant stress for you to engage in your career. एंड आई थिंक इवेंचुअली डू फॉलो योर पैशन. जो भी आप करते हो, कोई भी चीज़ में आप पैशनेट होते हो और आपका इनर पोटेंशियल उसमें साथ देता है, राइट? देन आई थिंक दैट्स व्हाट आई कॉल करियर सक्सेस. Career success is not only money, fame, and other stuff, but it is also that whatever you intended, it has helped you fulfill your dreams in a way
Hmm.
which is beneficial to you, your organization, and the society itself.
Yes. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us and sharing your career journey with us. I hope कि बहुत लोगों को इससे सीखने को मिलेगा. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vishal. Thank you for being a great host. And I think the kind of work with Mithyaverse and We Are Places doing, led by you and Anmol and various other advisors, I think this is a real problem you guys are solving. And through this technology, I think millions can be impacted if it is done in the right way. So I wish you all the best. And yeah, we wish to see your success.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
थैंक यू एवरीवन फॉर लिसनिंग टिल द वेरी एंड. मुझे उम्मीद है कि रौनक की जर्नी से आप कुछ सीख पाएंगे और आप इंसाइट्स ले पाएंगे. अगर आपको रौनक सर से करियर से रिलेटेड किसी भी तरीके का सवाल हो तो आप हमें ईमेल या लिंक्डइन पे मैसेज कर सकते हैं. आप उन्हें भी डायरेक्टली लिंक्डइन और इंस्टाग्राम पे फॉलो कर सकते हैं. ये सारे लिंक्स आपको डिस्क्रिप्शन में मिल जाएंगे और इस समय स्क्रीन पे भी डिस्प्ले हो रहे हैं. तो मिलते हैं अगले हफ्ते अगली जर्नी के साथ. थैंक यू.